Okay, 1 second. And we're live. Welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan. Sorry for the slightly late start. We have a special guest with us. But first, our panel includes Vanessa Foran, Olga Cronin from Broadsheet, Neil Curran from Dublin, a new father, improv artist, Johnny Keenan from Kilkenny, and our special guest is Irvin Muchnick. And Irvin, you're in New York, aren't you? Can you hear me, Irvin?
I had a little technical problem there. Let's try again.
Okay, Irvin, can you hear me?
I do hear you, but it's choppy.
It's choppy. Okay. How's that now?
No, it's not. It's not a matter of the quality of the sound. It's the quantity of the sound.
Okay, Irvin. Irvin Muchnick is a U.S.-based, a New York journalist, a sports journalist, and the reason we have him on the line is that he has pursued George Gibney, who was an Irish swimming coach, who managed to get to Ireland, or managed to get to America in the 90s after his 27 charges. Actually, Olga, maybe Olga, if you want to join us on this.
Yeah. So basically, George Gibney, he was a former Olympic swimming coach. He coached for years here in Dublin, and basically, there were charges brought against him in 1993. But thanks to Irv's work, we now know that prior to that, he secured a visa in 1992 to the States, and he secured the visa in 1992, which was the year after people who had been abused by him started coming together and raising their concerns and speaking out, I suppose. Basically, or if you can explain maybe, but basically, you've been trying to find out or to secure or obtain rather the visa that he got from the Homeland Security in the States, because it's been previously reported by yourself and Justine McCarthy in the Sunday Times that he got a character reference for that visa. So, and also, I probably should explain as well, is that when the charges were put against him, they were quashed basically because of a judicial review that paved the way for that to happen. And that came about through a Supreme Court decision that was taken by Gibney, basically arguing that too much time had lapsed between, I think it was something like 11 years. It is null and void now, but at the time anyway, it was successful. And his solicitor or his lawyer was Patrick Gageby, and one of the judges sitting in the Supreme Court that day was Patrick Gageby's sister, Susan Denham, who went on to become the Chief Justice, and she's retired there in the summer. So
Patrick Gageby then went on to chair the review into Cynthia Owen's case. And Patrick Gageby throughout the 90s and was campaigning for the time limits with these abuse cases.
And he indeed used that Supreme Court decision, didn't he, in other cases subsequently. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So Irvin, sorry, that rambling, well, anyway, not from a rambling introduction. Good evening, Irvin.
Oh, thanks for having me, and well set up by Olga. I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I did live in New York. I'm now based in Berkeley, California.
Okay.
But I can't do any of these things without telling you where I'm really from, which is the Mecca of Western civilization, St. Louis, Missouri, home of the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's one thing. The other thing is Olga has explained very well the background on Gibney. My own interest in it, which started 3 years ago after I read Justine McCarthy's book, Deep Deception, Ireland's Swimming Scandals, was not even so much Gibney being brought to justice himself, although that's obviously very important and of paramount interest to the victims and their families and to so many people in Ireland. But I got into it because of the American piece of what I think is a story of global scandal of abuse and cover-up among amateur swim coaches in the sport of swimming. So I've been investigating USA swimming since 2012. I'm now about 6 years into this project. And the question I wanted to know is, what is the accountability in the American swimming establishment for enabling arguably the most notorious sex abuser in all global sport to enter our country and be harbored here for now going on a quarter of a century? So the very first headline of the first story I did about this in January of 2015 was, "Why is George Gibney #1 pedophile in sports?" or however I characterized him. Why is George Gibney living in Florida, and who sponsored his green card? Mm-hmm. And that was where it all began. And I made a Freedom of Information Act request to U.S. Citizenship and Information Services, which is under the Department of Homeland Security. And they came back to me with 4 pages and 98 fully redacted, totally withheld pages. The 4 pages were essentially information on a public website by an Irish-American gentleman named Evan Daly, who runs an anti-abuse advocacy group in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, called One Child International. So that was material that I already had and that the whole world already had, but apparently it had been forwarded to the government and it became part of his file. And since it was public, it was the only thing they released to me.
Okay.
From there, I appealed administratively. I was denied. And I was fortunate enough to find an attorney who would take on suing the Department of Homeland Security in federal court in San Francisco. And we did that later in 2015.
Pro bono. And
I've talked a long time, but I could go on with the procedural aspects of the case, but we could stop here.
It's extremely complicated. I mean, our legal system is a little bit different, or actually radically different. You've did bars, district bars, supreme, you've gone through about 8 hurdles already, haven't you?
That's true. But of course, Ireland is a much smaller country than the United States, which I've learned in investigating the swimming story, because every time I bring up Dr. Gary O'Toole, who is the Olympic swimmer who heard the story from Chalky White about George Gibney's abuse of Chalky White going back to 1967. And then Gary O'Toole went on to, although he was not a victim himself, went on to organize victims into finding a way to communicate what had happened to them to the swimming authorities in Ireland and to the Gardaí. Every time I mention Gary O'Toole to someone in Ireland, they say, "Oh yeah, he's my aunt's orthopedic surgeon." So I get the impression that I'm dealing with a much a smaller universe than I'm used to in the 40 million plus people of California and the 300 million people of the United States.
George Gibney, you believe, offended again in America when he got there?
I'm sorry, I missed that question, John.
George Gibney, once he was freed from Ireland, went to the States, and you believe offended again there.
I'm sorry, this is terribly frustrating. I'm having what you were saying to me.
Sorry, Irvin.
Even if you're hearing me clearly.
I'm hearing you very clearly. I'm so sorry. George Gibney, once he got to America, you have evidence that he committed further offenses there.
Yes. He evidently had a coaching job in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, when he first got here in the mid-90s. And that job fell apart very quickly within a year or so, because he was accused of sexual misconduct in that role, although it was nothing that was prosecuted. And the stories range from him pinching one of the girl swimmers to snapping her bra strap on her swimming suit. So we don't know. It doesn't seem to be anything nearly as heinous as the things that we have established that he did in Ireland. But there was that, and he was forced out of that job immediately. And as far as I know, has never swum again. Now, when he was living in the Denver area, he was also involved in some other very shady activities. He was a chairman or an officer for an eye clinic that was affiliated with a local church in Denver that traveled to Peru and supposedly performed humanitarian services there. He got on the board of a juvenile rehabilitation organization in the criminal justice system in Colorado, which gave him access to kids. He did a couple of other things that were a little bit suspicious, but the upshot of his time in Denver was that after he lost his coaching job, he had another job, and his employer, a woman, came across things from Ireland on the internet and fired him and reported him to the Wheat Ridge, Colorado police. And shortly thereafter, his world came apart in Colorado, and he moved from there to various places. I don't know whether Calistoga, California, which is featured in the 2006 primetime clipping on the RTE network, which I just put up on YouTube. Yeah. I'm not sure whether that was his next stop, but it was one of his stops. And he's now in Central Florida. Last we heard, Altamonte Springs, Florida.
And the irony is that there was a rape committed in Florida by Gibney, allegedly.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that we haven't gotten to yet. In December 1990 was when Gary O'Toole learned from Chalky White all these allegations. And the year 1991 was the year when all of these charges started surfacing and bubbling up in Irish swimming. But early in that year, Gibney, who I think by that point was no longer the national team swim coach, but was still running his program, the Trojan Swim Club, took them on a training trip to Tampa, Florida. And it was there that he raped and impregnated a 17-year-old girl whom he had previously molested in Holland. And so what is very interesting is that a year before he successfully applied for an American visa, 3 years before he became a permanent resident alien of the United States, he had actually committed one of his most heinous crimes right on American soil. And so one of the things we would like to do is get the state's attorney in Hillsborough County, Florida, who has told us that it is still prosecutable, despite the passage of 26, 27 years. We would like to get that victim to be able to make a statement or somehow get information to the law enforcement authorities in Florida. Now, that woman is featured in the 2006 RTE primetime clip that is on YouTube now. Her face is pixelated. She's not identified. Unfortunately, I'm told that woman is not in good shape right now. And she goes in and out of periods where she feels competent enough and strong enough to talk officially about what happened to her.
And there's no statute of limitations on that, obviously, in Florida.
Once again, I'm not getting you, John.
Irvin, there's no statute of limitations on that offense then in Florida, obviously.
If there is a statute of limitations, and I have a hard time keeping track from jurisdiction to jurisdiction what all the rules are, but if there is a statute of limitations on that crime in Florida, I've been told with confidence by the assistant state's attorney there that it is not expired on that crime.
Now, Irvin, George Gibney failed to become a citizen in 2010.
Right. What I think happened was the following, and we'll be able to shed a lot more light on that if we are ever able to resolve the government's appeal of my successful Freedom of Information Act case. We didn't continue to march through the procedural history of that. But in about a year ago at this time, Judge Charles Breyer ruled, he said largely in Muchnick's favor, in district court, and then in February, just before the deadline for appealing, the new government of Donald J. Trump did indeed appeal, and we're now at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We are negotiating under the auspices of the mediation service of the Ninth Circuit, so I'm hopeful that we won't have to litigate this for years and years, and that we will soon be able to announce a settlement. But that's really about all I can say about that at this point. But anyway, the point of what I was starting to say is that if we can resolve this FOIA case, what was the question that we were talking about earlier? Oh, his citizenship application. We do know from the chronology of the documents that have been voluntarily released by the government at this point that Gibney applied for citizenship in 2010. He'd already been here for many years, but why he did it at that point, it is reasonable to speculate it is because that was when Evan Daly's campaign was putting renewed heat on him. And I think that there was a feeling by Gibney perhaps that if he were to become a permanent citizen, that he would be inoculated from these periodic efforts to get him extradited and tried again in Ireland. So I think that was what's behind it. It's speculation on my part. But in any case, Judge Breyer did reveal in open court about 13 months ago that Gibney's citizenship application was denied. And we know from the partial documents that we've received from the government that Gibney was nudged by the government with a notice after he had first applied for citizenship, and he was asked to explain a few things a little bit better. He had said that he had never been convicted of a crime in Ireland, but the form that he was asked to fill out and that the government very explicitly ran down for him again said, you're not just being asked if you were ever convicted, but you're being asked if you have ever been charged. And so I don't know how he responded to that, but the bottom line is that he didn't get citizenship. And what Judge Breyer was questioning, again in open court last year, was if he was denied citizenship on the grounds that he had lied on his application, why was there no consequence other than his simply being denied citizenship? Because Judge Breyer said he knew of people who had lied materially about things on applications for the government, who had their passports taken away and had other things happen to them. So I think that this is, if I may ramble just a little bit more, I think this brings us to the point where the George Gibney story is no longer just a story of a group of people, victims and friends. And I'm sorry about being a bad multitasker and not knowing how to handle my phone or turn it off. I'll try to remember to do it after this response. It's not just a story of individual people and their families and their advocates trying to bring this monster to justice, but it's also a story of what are the government procedures in Ireland, and now we know the government procedures in the United States to take place. Now, T.D. O'Sullivan has been working with the Garda Director of Public Prosecutions to try to get them to review and reopen the Gibney file. I've also been encouraging her to reach out to sister legislators in the United States, like Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, Congresswoman Jackie Spear of California, who are very much involved in the sexual assault issue and the coach sex abuse issue, to work with her to now that we know there's a question about the government's conduct in this case, to work more forcefully to make it possible for him to get extradited and justice served. And as I say, accountability assessed for who did this in America.
Urban, what is your conclusion so far that Gibney is being protected by powerful people?
Yeah, I think that we've got a number of things happening here. One is Ireland, unfortunately, a wonderful, beautiful country, but it's beset by cronyism in a lot of its procedures, and the diversity lottery visa by which Gibney got here in the 1990s seems to be full of questions about its fairness, its equity, its true randomness. It seems like if you knew somebody, there was a way to cut in line and get one of these golden winning visa lottery tickets. That may have happened. We don't have any direct evidence right now from the Freedom of Information Act materials that I have. But we do know that it was a diversity lottery visa. Right. So
what are the chances?
So that certainly is one thing. Now, another thing is just, as I said, the swimming world, and it's not just the American swimming world, it's not just the Irish swimming world, but it's the global swimming world. Just like the Catholic Church, unfortunately, has made it all too facile for miscreants to move from program to program, from state to state. And in the case of George Gibney and other coaches that I've investigated, such as Alex Pucialdi of Brazil, and there's a coach in Australia who's been coaching in the United States and other places, actually moving from country to country.
Yeah, like the priests.
Irvin, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, Irvin, just what's next then?
Well, what's next is I really think with the streaming of that wonderful piece by RT Television in 2006, I really think that I'm kind of at the end until we get a resolution of the FOIA lawsuit, which I think could be very soon. I certainly hope it's very soon. I really think that everything is in place now for the good people in Ireland who are concerned about this, and the good people in the United States who are concerned about this, to work together with their elected leaders to get a solution to this Gibney problem, this nightmare that has now lasted for a quarter of a century.
I know that more.
And then I hope too that further reporting, if not the FOIA matter, but just further reporting and exploration by people and just who it is who enabled Gibney to get that job offer letter in America, get that coaching job here, and take residency in this country for so many years. And the number one suspect is not USA Swimming, which is the U.S. Olympic Committee's national sport governing body, but is a group called the American Swimming Coaches Association, which has a lot of tentacles in national programs, and certainly it has a big presence in Ireland since George Gibney got away.
Really?
Well, Irvin, I don't want to keep you any longer. And there's another thing that I'd like to talk about at a later date, maybe about your site, Concussion Inc. You've investigated concussion in the NFL. So hopefully we could maybe talk about it in terms of rugby and GAA in the future. I don't know if you can hear me, Irvin.
I'd love to do it. I did hear you, and you're very kind to plug my most recent real book. I've got a bunch of ebooks too that nobody buys and reads, but please come to concussioninc.net and read all about it.
We will definitely. And Irvin, we'll get, hopefully the next time we speak, we'll have a better connection.
Yeah, it's great meeting all you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Irvin. Thanks.
Bye, Irv.
Hi, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Just want to go straight to Olga. It's great to meet Irvin.
Yeah.
Sorry about my introduction.
He's worked so hard.
Yeah, forgive my introduction. Can everybody hear me okay? Is it okay?
I can hear you.
You can hear okay? Fine.
Yeah.
I think Irvin wasn't wearing earphones, so everything just sort of sounded sort of echoey. Sorry, Olga.
Yeah, no, that was great to meet, or great to have Irvin. He's worked so hard on that case. My gosh, it's gone on, and he's just been really dogged with it. So it's brilliant, you know.
He's completely committed.
I
mean, there's clearly there's something
amiss.
Something amiss. Somebody got looked after Gibney here in Ireland, and obviously they looked after him over there as well. So
yeah, it appears so.
So
I mean, for him.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, no, just going back to the timeline of it. You know, people, they raised their concerns. Like you said, Chalky White spoke to Gary O'Toole. He then said about trying to find people. You know, more people were speaking to each other. According to the Murphy report, which looked into swimming, one woman said that she was told by a coach that the concerns were told to the Gardaí in 1991, which would have been a year before he got his visa. Sorry, his Garda character reference. And yet the Murphy report couldn't nail that down And it was just that the first mention of Gibney, like officially with the allegations in the Gardaí, was the end of 1992, I think it was, or even 1993. But I do think it is recorded in the Murphy report that one woman said she was told that it was with the Gardaí in 1991.
Okay.
He got the Garda reference after it.
Okay, well then, thanks for that. Hopefully we'll have Irvin back on to talk about this, and his stuff on concussion is amazing. Sorry, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think that he's got a lot more to add, not just on the Gibney thing, but just on sport in general,
Yeah, you mentioned
like all the great sports writers that I remember were American, like the Oscar Madisons. So I wonder if he's got fantastic stories, and not just the concussion thing. I think there's a lot more out there. And interestingly, I understand concussion's a big thing with jockeys that they're keeping quite hidden here, actually.
Okay.
And epilepsy.
Yeah, that's true about in America. The sports journalists are the best
writers, the best.
Well, I always think of sports writers. I think of Oscar Madison, and the last great sports story I read was about Cuban baseball players landing up in America. Like they're penniless in Cuba, but if they wash up on a beach in Florida, they're multimillionaires, and it was a fabulous story. It was in Vanity Fair about 10 years ago, and it was the last great sports story I read, really.
Okay. Well, you've mentioned before, Vanessa, about the link between the sports and the abuse and stuff. So it's definitely a story that we can follow with Irving over the next couple of months. Neil, how are you?
Thank you.
I have projector envy.
Well, as we often say in the toilets, John, Vanessa's is bigger than ours.
Yours has a lovely curl in it, like a little wave.
It's got a quiff, yeah. We're working on that. It's a work in progress.
And Neil, you're a little bit dark, if you don't mind me saying there, a little bit in shade.
Yeah, I think if I put on more light, it might ruin the backdrop. I don't know if that's any better.
Well, oh, God, the professional.
Neil, on your computer screen, if you've got something dark on it, maybe if you take away the window.
I think if I go any brighter, then the backdrop will fade out. We'll fix it.
Okay. And Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny. How are you, Johnny? Johnny, your mic is off.
Grand, John.
Ah, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Can you hear me there now? Yeah, I'm great.
Hear you perfect.
Good to be expected.
I wanted to get straight onto the political machinations of the week.
I just want to say something there about Irvin.
Please.
Just when he said something interesting there about, I didn't know Gary O'Toole was that well connected with that case and helping other victims come forward. Yeah, I know. And he was a great pundit there as well during the Olympics, but I didn't realize that he was. But he made an interesting point, Irvin, and I'm not being tongue in cheek about it, but he says Ireland is that small that people knew Gary O'Toole as a surgeon. Is that right? But in Ireland, it's kind of like no one knows a paedophile until they're convicted. So yeah, there's a lot to be said there in relation to how well we know people and how much they are involved in swimming clubs and other clubs. Tom Humphreys more recently, still can't say a bad word against Tom Humphreys. Amazing in the media world. So that seems to be a big problem. I'd like to have found out what Irvin thought about journalism in this country when it comes to character references and all that kind of shit. Gibney got a personal Garda reference, I understand, as well. And there was also, Olga, you made the point that he was related to someone in the judiciary as well. Is that right?
No, not him. It was his lawyer was Patrick Ashby. He's a barrister. Actually, I don't think he was a barrister. I think he was a solicitor, but it was Patrick Ashby was on his legal team, and he argued in front of his sister at the Supreme Court.
Oh, no, he was a barrister. He's a barrister.
Oh, sorry, was he? I thought.
Okay.
He was senior counsel. He was senior counsel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So bring that all back to the now in relation to the main problem with the McCabe Tribunal or the Charlton Tribunal or the Disclosures Tribunal, whichever one they are, they're all involving Garda McCabe, I think, initially, essentially about the paedophilia charge that was brought against him. So, you know, these things are, they're very much away from each other, but they're very much connected in some kind of institutional, barbaric, little island, septic mentality situation. I really can't get my head around it. So, you know, where is Gibney now?
It's in America, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in Florida.
Yeah. So he abused kids over here, and then he went on to abuse kids in America.
Well,
and he was given a visa by the Irish authorities.
Yeah, he claims it was apparently it was the visa lottery that he'd won, but there was to initially go to the States, he got a reference from a guard, with non-named guard, presumably a sergeant or above level.
I think it's the number one issue in this country is paedophilia, and it seems to be from the top down, and it's fucking pathetic. Like, it really is. Yeah. So, you know, I like the idea of Irvin, someone from the outside having a clear view, because no one here, and I'll say it again, I'm not saying you're great and all that, but most of the news in relation to, I don't know, who else is talking about Gibney this week?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's the first thing that Irvin, when he wrote to us, Olga will remember, and his question to us was like, who is this guy? How is this? You know, I know he was a Olympic swimming coach, but he must be very, very powerful.
National swimming coach, like, you know, he wasn't down in the local club. This guy is national, yeah?
Yeah, but he was national, but he was also, I think he trained the kids of prominent people in King's House and stuff, and I think
George didn't train King's House.
Or sorry,
Trojan.
Yeah, Trojan. So I think swimming is a upper middle class sport in Ireland. I don't think it's, you know.
No, it's changing, John.
Okay,
it probably was in the 90s.
Yeah, well, in the 90s, no, but like when I was thinking about that, I think in clubs now, all that stuff is, you know, since the Murphy report, as you said, and the Ryan report, I definitely have become, my mind has been blown, and I like to kind of, you know, direct people back to it, because I think it should be actually something that's on the school curriculum, maybe for junior cert. And you know, people need to know our history, and it's very bleak, very bad. But I think parents now, younger generation parents, 30 to 40, they're very gun-ho in relation to who's looking after their kids, and rightly so, in every shape and form. But that's more or less, you know, I'm not going to say that there's a fear factor there, because you can never be overprotective of your kids, especially in this situation. Yeah. But it's just, I think it's, from what being said in the 90s, Gibney, if this was going on now, and it seems to be in America, I don't know, like, you know, it's very unsettling. You know, that with everything that's happening, that they're still not being monitored. That's kind of very unsettling, like, you know.
Well, when a lot of abuse cases sort of came really into prominence in the early 90s, there was a campaign, things like the false memory syndrome, which was invented by pedophiles to get them off these charges. Although that there was, I mean, victims just weren't believed, frankly, really, up to a point, unless they had absolute, physical direct evidence. Otherwise, in fact, I may have mentioned this before, but there was a prominent legal mind actually didn't believe that there was such thing as abuse in the 90s.
Who was that, John?
I won't mention his name, but I think that was a prevalent view. It was among the law library anyway, that there was that not every case, and we really had to sort of nail it down. Even Susan Denham during the Supreme Court ruling that sent that back for judicial review was explicitly that we must be so careful, you know, that a long time has passed, etc., etc. So things have completely.
So that's interesting, John. But like, what's the mentality? If you're talking about the judiciary and the clergy, you know, it's obviously a power thing there, because there's obviously no logic behind it, and it is vile, it is sick. But what is it like? You know, that because it's institutional. We know that.
Well, sorry, Johnny. I'll just move on because sorry, if you don't mind. I mean, speaking of sociopathic behavior, I mean, I know that Frances Fitzgerald. It was very, very, very tough week for her, but I really feel that, and I don't understand how she could continue going into work knowing what she knew, what they were up to with Maurice McCabe.
Sorry, John, I can't hear you. Can you hear John?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but you just cut out there maybe a minute ago. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
maybe it was just me.
I wonder if you just turn off your mic and speak to the laptop, John. Would it be a bit smoother?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's a bit sock. It sounds like you're talking through a sock, John. It might be you're too close to the mic.
Yeah, maybe I'm too close. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, God, sorry, I was over.
It's the simple things.
I was overcompensating for my little microphone.
That's what I said about my banner.
Sociopathic behavior. Frances Fitzgerald, I just felt that, of course, she had to resign, but I still can't believe, and I can't get my head around the fact that they knew what they knew, and they did nothing, and let Maurice and Lorraine just suffer in the way that they did, and just become I mean, Vanessa?
What are you asking me?
Well, how do they sleep?
Frances, I say she sleeps very well. I think
on a bed of money.
Look what you did. Yeah, I don't think Frances cares really that much. I'm surprised she actually even bothered turning up to the convention, but I think that was just all bravado. You know, Leo, I don't know. He obviously did the deal with Frances a long ways off to get her vote during the leadership election and stood by her. And I do think Fine Gael and well, particularly Leo, they stood by her relentlessly, because maybe it was because it was Sinn Féin that was landing all the shots, and they deliberately put up the front until they just couldn't get away with it anymore, you know. That's my view of the world anyway. But other than I don't think Frances gives a shite.
Neil, I have to say, I thought it was an incredibly bad week for Leo Varadkar. He comes out of it. I can't even think.
I think it's a bad week for Fine Gael. It's a bad week for us all. I mean, the icing on the cake then was her post step down speeches, where it was like she was telling us she was doing us a favor. She was doing the nation a favor by resigning. You know, the arrogance, the absolute arrogance. But it really was a bit of was mud in the face for Fine Gael there, because the supporters really got behind her, as we would expect with politicians, and then when the rug was pulled from under them. But I mean, the writing was on the wall for so long. I mean, why do they consistently do this? They drag it out to the last minute.
I don't know. I mean, what was the end game? Because it was clearly to see if Micheál Martin would blink, but he didn't blink, because the second batch of emails came in.
But I mean, I'd love to have been.
I think he did blink.
I beg your pardon?
I think Micheál Martin did blink. He did back down.
But he just wanted a resignation, didn't he?
Well, yeah, but at the same time, you know, I don't think he was putting up the big fight he was trying to let on. He was trying to sort it out, and I'm the leader of the opposition, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and that. There was none of the posturing that they were talking about in the end.
Well,
no, and they didn't go after Charles Flanagan as agreed, obviously.
Well, he didn't go after Charles Flanagan, but I mean, he wasn't. You know, he wanted Frances gone without an election, and he got that. So, no, I'm not. You're not convinced.
Can I make a point about the email, the first email, the May 15th, 2015 email?
Of course.
And I find it weird how we know that Sergeant McCabe told Leo of record that what happened in the email never happened. And Leo said this in the Dáil, so it's there for everyone to report and whatever. But I think I found it odd how that wasn't focused on, and that there weren't questions asked of, I mean, I know it is up to the tribunal, but I do find it funny how there was very little discussion over the Attorney General and the Chief State Solicitor's Office in relation to that, because when Frances Fitzgerald it all started to crumble when she gave that interview with Anya Lawler, remember? And she went through the sequence of events in relation to this email before it was circulated and whatever. And Anya Lawler said, she laid out, she said, look, this email, it was a discussion between, it relayed a discussion between an Attorney General official and a Department of Justice official. And Anya Lawler said to her, so you said to us that it started with the Chief State Solicitor's Office to the Attorney General. And she said, no, it was the Attorney General Office to the Department of Justice. And then that evening when she went into the Dáil, she laid it out again, and she said it did start with the Chief State Solicitor's Office. And that it basically was like the Chief State Solicitor's Office contacted an official in the Attorney General's office. In turn, there was contact made with Frances Fitzgerald. And that's what the email looks like. But I do think I know it's really complex and really quite boring for people, but I do find it interesting that that didn't really get thrashed out in the media but surely that's really important.
Well, Jinx.
Sergeant McCabe claims that the argument that was alleged in the email never happened. And in actual fact, it was over the fact that he was told, or it was alleged that he wants the DPP's directions overturned. And I've said this a million times. But I think it's interesting how that really wasn't.
I mean, you're the only person who finds it interesting. That's the problem, isn't it? I'm joking.
No, I know that's. I didn't mean to say it like that, but do you know what I mean? And it's because it's difficult. It's so difficult. Like.
Yeah.
But it's the blood sacrifice kind of is deemed to draw a line under the whole issue, really. At the end of the day,
it was overtaken by events as such. I mean, the actual details. I mean, I get that. But and everyone will go back to it in the tribunal. But obviously, the emails will show that Noreen O'Sullivan picked up the phone and rang to say we got this call from RTE, just to let you know, blah blah blah. And the Department of Justice then advised Frances Fitzgerald how to handle the question should she be asked the following day.
Do you know, Olga, I know you've done enormous hours and work and graft on the tribunal and the broadsheet in general on the timeline. And can I tell you this whole week, the last week since we all last spoke here last Thursday, had nothing to do with more. Everything was all about Frances Fitzgerald. Was she resigning? Was she staying? Was there going to be an election? And the actual bones of it all was completely ignored. And this is my worry about the whole tribunal. I've said it on here, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty of this. We already know what's going on. Can we just get to the solution?
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a report out tonight about the Keith Harrison module, and
the Keith Harrison module. Charlton threw out all his allegations.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
sorry, all of whose allegations? The Keith Harrison's.
Keith Harrison, yeah.
So that's that. You know, they've dealt with that, and Olga, who was at the Harrison, during that module.
Yeah.
You saw that coming. In fact, you said.
Yeah. I don't think anyone who could have been there. Basically, Charlton said, I'll just read this little bit out. All of the allegations of Garda Keith Harrison and Marissa Sims examined by the tribunal are entirely without any validity. They've claimed to have been the victims of a malicious procession of events. That is not so. Others, there is another side to this. The allegations which they made must have taken a considerable emotional toll on several of the multiple persons accused by them of very serious misconduct. It is appropriate here to exonerate everyone in social services and in policing accused by them of discreditable conduct. That is the only possible conclusion to the tribunal's inquiry. Yeah, and he also talks about how their case and their allegations completely collapsed. But we did talk about it. It did collapse. But I will say one thing, and I promise not to go on.
No, go on.
Sandra Hurley it's on RT. Sandra Hurley RT was reporting earlier, and it's on prime time. Obviously, we haven't seen it. Started at 10, I think, but they apparently, John Barrett. He's the head of the HR guards. He's a civilian guard. So apparently, he sent a letter to Donald Coulon, the assistant commissioner.
Yeah.
And it's over concerns about the tribunal, about the unit within the Gardaí that sends documents to the tribunal. And basically, I think the concerns are based on the RT, on what Sandra Hurley told 9 o'clock news. I haven't seen prime time, but apparently the concerns are that this unit isn't treating all the Gardaí that they're representing equally. So they mightn't be representing the Garda commissioner and the whistleblowers equally. That's what she reported. And Alan Kelly was going to go on in prime time talking about. I was just talking about this because I'm just going to mention it because Keith Harrison, Peter Charlton has found what he has found, but he was in the High Court last week, Keith Harrison, because documents that were supposed to be given to him and his legal team by the Guard Commissioner haven't been given.
Mm-hmm.
And so last week they went to the High Court.
Discovery, Olga. Sorry.
I think so, Vanessa. And basically, the judge last week said, the judge last Monday, I think it was, said, okay, well, basically the guards argued we need more time, and so I think they've been given 4 more weeks. But I think the judge, my understanding is that the judge was adamant that this had to happen this side of Christmas, and that so if there's concerns about documents that haven't been given to them, I mean, one of Charlton's biggest complaints, I think, about Keith Harrison was that he didn't have the evidence. Also, though, that they weren't putting their complaints about certain people to the people when they were in the dock or taking the questions or whatever. But anyway, I'm not sure if that's going to have any retrospective consequence on the report that came out tonight, because if it's a case that there are documents, and if and we know now already that there has been a problem with documents not being sent to the tribunal, I don't know if this will change things. But anyway, speculation on my part, but Charlton completely threw out their allegations and exonerated anyone that was mentioned by them.
I never understood why, or we never understood why the Harrison module was just plonked in the middle of Maurice McCabe's.
I think I was supportive and happy for him when it was first announced that he was going to be added to it. Yeah, but as soon as the hearing started, it was extremely difficult to understand why they went down that route.
Well, his partner's evidence seemed to...
In relation to that.
His partner's evidence exonerated
Tusla
and guards, effectively. Anyway, just moving back to Frances Fitzgerald, her replacement as Tánaiste to Simon Coveney, and Heather Humphreys has been moved to Minister for Business, and the new Arts Minister, or Minister for Culture, is Josepha
Madigan.
Josepha Madigan. And we know Josepha from, she was strongly opposed and said it was a waste of resources to set up a traveller halting site, accommodation site in her constituency, which I think is Rathdrum, is it? Or no,
Dublin 14, Dublin 16, I think.
All right, yeah. Are you very happy with this, with Simon's elevation, Neil?
It was to be expected. I mean, what a way to rally the Fine Gael troops together by saying, Simon, here you go, have the wooden spoon and a shiny chair to sit in. It was to be expected. But Simon seems to be liked. I mean, even on the site today when you put the picture up, there was some nice comments about Simon. I think if Fine Gael probably looking at the perspective of, right, we've got solidarity back again, so anyone who was irked by Simon's non-election now will have good reason to rally behind him, and in turn our Leo. So Fine Gael now be happy with an election the next time it comes up.
Yeah, I think
Fine Gael would have loved in an election now.
Really?
It was Fine and that didn't
I don't know.
want him, really.
No, I don't know.
See, the Boundary Commission now suits Fine Gael, whereas if the changes are ratified, they suit Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin.
And particularly in Tipperary, is that right?
No, I don't think it's... there is a change in Tip, all right. I think Alan Kelly moves over to Limerick. His base, Newport, goes to Limerick. I think so.
Oh, okay.
But so Kildare goes to a 4-seater, so that brings in another Fianna Fáiler probably. You know, although Helen McEntee might be in trouble because she goes to Cavan.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it's all numbers in its own way.
Yeah.
But Fine Gael were on stronger momentum 2 weeks ago, than Fianna Fáil were.
Yes.
And Fianna Fáil weren't ready for, and I actually think the appointment of Simon Coveney as Taoiseach is an appeasement to the Fine Gael party outside Dublin, because Leo's support is within the parliamentary party.
Yeah, well, Coveney won the popular vote effectively, wasn't he? I mean,
he's 3/4 of the Fine Gael vote, the membership.
Yeah,
and it's the membership that gets these guys elected.
But
remember, John Deasy isn't even on the ticket now because he let his membership lapse.
Did he really? Yeah.
That's careless, isn't it?
I think that was planned. I think that was planned.
I'm sure they'd let him off and let him have a lapse membership, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, he has to be a member to be on the ticket.
Okay.
Rules are rules. This is the rule book.
They don't have a very deep bench, as they say in Fine Gael, do they? I'm not sure about Joseph Madigan, but...
Sorry, I missed that, John.
Oh, I said they don't have a very deep bench, as they say in Fine Gael, that Joseph Madigan is now Minister for Arts.
But Heather Humphreys is a minister in a very important ministry in enterprise, you know, so that's I think foreign affairs and enterprise are our most important ministries, by the way.
She also said she's going to tackle gender imbalance as well in the higher echelons of politics, which will be interesting to see what comes there.
Lovely.
Heather or Josepha?
Heather. Heather mentioned it was on her agenda.
Okay. I mean, what I mean is that there's not a whole sort of seats of talent in Fine Gael at the moment, is there? I mean, they're running low on ministerial caliber people.
Oh, sure, God love him, Leo. He's no one to pick from. You know, he's pretty stoked for talent.
Did you feel that he didn't seem Taoiseach material this week at all?
But there's too many of them there. I mean, if you pick a Fine Gael, who would you pick as Taoiseach?
Well,
I thought when he went into the house to,
do the mea culpa, it was like a student in a debating society having lost on a few points. He was just truculent and childish and really mean-spirited. So he wasn't humble at all, basically. I mean,
they're not humble, John. They're not humble. Who is he?
That's what I'd have expected from him.
But he wasn't voted in by the people. He was voted in by his own party. So how he can be the leader of a country when he wasn't voted in by the people? Is that joke not fucking up yet? No. Like, when are people going to get real? Sorry.
But that's the way it is with the leadership of all the parties. It's elected by their members.
Yeah. Listen, Vanessa, I fucking know that. Like, come on, let's just address the real situation here. How did he get away with what he got away with this week? It's a fucking farce. Fitzgerald is leaving. She's a TD, and before she left, she signed up to run in the next election. Like, are they taking the piss in full front of our faces? I've got a few things I want to say in relation to Fine Gael and Fitzgerald, how that came about, changing the goalposts, taking the deflecting from the real issue, which was McCabe, and it's about. Enda Kenny did it a month ago. Do we have the memories of a goldfish? Well, the fucking media in this country does anyway, and it's paid for. And I'm not having this conversation whether Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Fuck them. Fuck them all. Get them out. Get them fucking out. And I'll tell you what. Did Maurice McCabe go to Micheál Martin or Leo Varadkar for support? No, he didn't. He went to Claire Daly and Nick Wallace. So when your one is grandstanding and having a little joke there about the Cork crowd coming in, I think that was pathetic today.
Okay, one second.
That joke that Mary Lou had, yeah?
Yeah, Johnny, but I think Micheál Martin and Varadkar,
to his credit, Varadkar stood up from really when the story was dying and changed gave the whole nature of the story a different complexion.
I remember that, Olga, don't you? I mean,
yeah,
it was like,
back in 2014.
It was critical.
Yeah.
I will say that if he was privy then to information that they were trying to nobble him.
What did he do about it?
Well, you know,
it's not about knowing about it and saying that he's an honourable,
I think that's worse.
Man.
Johnny,
yeah, exactly.
So something else there, Johnny. Johnny, something else there as well. Like I think the constituency branch, Fine Gael branch, should have not voted Frances Fitzgerald in their convention the other night. If they were really serious about the future of their constituency and future Fine Gael in that constituency, they would have thought better of it.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
No. Just let me finish.
You're bringing it back to what you want to talk about, Vanessa. You want to talk about Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. I don't want to talk about any of them.
No.
Johnny, one moment.
Vanessa, your microphone is just a little. You're getting static.
Okay. The other. Can you hear me now?
No, it's still like that. And I'm just going to 1 second because we're going to go to. Olga's just going to go through tomorrow's papers. We're going to go back to this, but we'll just go to the papers first. Okay, just sort of chill out a little. Everybody, be included.
Sorry, this always takes so long. It shouldn't, but it does. Sorry. Okay, so
tomorrow.
There's actually a really, really, really very sad story in the front of the Examiner tomorrow. Can you see that? See the papers there? So I'll just go down to it. So there's a girl there, she's 11, and she took her life. Her name is, it's a story by Louise Rosengrave, Millie Toomey. It's very sad. She took her life because she didn't like the way she looked. So on the left there, 8 of top 100 firms pay no tax on profits. Revenue Commissioner's boss insists Ireland is not a tax haven. Story by Fiachra O'Connor.
That was from the
from today, wasn't it? Yeah. And there's a story there. Almost 60,000 pupils absent each day by Noel Baker. An increasing number of children are missing. More days of school, with figures also showing a spike in the number of students expelled at post-primary level. There's a story below. UK offer of trade regulations hollow by Eamon Quinn. Any offer by Theresa May's government in the crunch Brexit talks that merely involved regulations and standards for trade would still lead to a hard border in Ireland and should be rejected outright by Dublin, one of the country's leading EU experts had said. Okay. And then there's the story there that I just mentioned that was on RTE. Acting Commissioner Donald Cowan has contacted the Department of Justice with the senior guard officials' concerns about the Force's internal Disclosures Tribunal unit. Section 1 of the Garda Síochána Act, which requires the Commissioner to keep the Justice Minister fully informed of various issues. So,
but it was set up by Noreen, so it's full of her people, and
this is it. I think so last week the head of Garda Union, so John Barrett, we were talking about earlier, he told the Public Accounts Committee he had raised formal written concerns about the Tribunal Department to the Garda Legal Affairs Unit. He is believed to be concerned the Tribunal Unit is not reflecting the interests of all Gardaí. Okay, yeah.
The Times Ireland edition is out.
Yeah, that's there. So GAA clubs warned over bouncy castles after girl wins payout. So by Michael Cogley, GAA clubs have been warned that their insurance policies do not cover people who are hurt using bouncy castles or Zorb balls. It comes after a case in Dublin resulting in €47,000 payout.
Zorb balls?
Zorb, the ones that you stand in and roll down. So this girl, she broke her collarbone in an inflatable plastic ball, Aisha Imran. So she sued Lucan Sarsfield's GAA club, and that was that.
Okay.
And then Brexit not a threat to peace deal, says Foster. Dublin rebukes DUP leader over Brussels letter. by Niamh Lyons and Sam Coates. Arlene Foster has told the heads of the European Union's member states to ignore claims that Brexit presents a threat to the peace process. In a letter seen by the Times, the DUP leader said that the peace process was not in peril, a claim that prompted a rebuke from Michael Creed, the Agriculture Minister, last night. It is important to be clear that no threat exists to the Northern Ireland peace process, Mrs. Foster said.
Okay, and then we'll come back to the papers.
Come back to them, okay.
When the other Irish ones arrive in the Times and whatever.
Okay.
So, Neil, 8 of the top 100 firms aren't paying any tax at all. In fact, they're getting money back for, I don't know, just being foreign and here and.
Well, that's no secret, and it's a misleading headline because we do have incentives for companies to invest in R&D in Ireland, so they get rebates in that. Also, the big controversy over some of the resource, the oil companies as well, that were able to write off a lot of their development against tax as well. But they're after the things. Well, it depends on how you define a tax haven. I mean, we have to strike a balance between attracting foreign companies and recognizing the employment they provide here. Like if you take American companies alone, and my figures are probably a little bit out of date, but the last time I'd seen figures, like American companies alone employ 120,000 people here, of which Apple employs 6,000 people. And you only have to look at counties where larger companies have pulled out to see the devastation that causes. So there is a balance to be struck between attracting companies, having a transparent tax system, which obviously is crucial, and providing employment when you don't have an indigenous industry that can support the rising population.
But have we gone too far, Vanessa? You're a tax specialist, I guess. Do you think that we're a tax haven? Vanessa? Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I
can't hear you, Vanessa. You might have to switch back the mic on in the settings there.
I actually interrupted you, Neil. You were making a second point there.
Yeah, and it's getting increasingly more competitive now. But France, Macron is changing some of the labor laws in France to make it more attractive for businesses. So that one of the biggest challenges employers face in France is redundancy, or the equivalent of redundancy payments, and they're quite severe, which employers are on the hook for a great deal. And Macron is going to loosen that in some. I don't know if it's across the board or if it's in certain industries.
This is like this is 2 years of almost full pay.
Yeah, and there's I may be getting this wrong, but there's certain then rules about rehiring the people you've let go and all this malarkey should positions arise. Now, I was talking to somebody today who's quite senior in the financial sector in London about Brexit and how things are going there, and he's saying that we are seeing a lot of jobs skip Ireland completely now and head to Paris, and I would have figured France would have been an outside chance compared to the likes of, say, Belgium and Ireland and even Frankfurt. And what he said was, when people are looking at Ireland now, the tax obviously is attractive, but our infrastructure hasn't caught up, and other issues such as housing are becoming a problem. So while the tax is a huge attraction now, we're seeing other challenges there. The flip side of that, though, is Trump is a step closer to bringing in his overhaul of the tax regime there. So he's looking to reduce corporate tax to, I think, about 20%, I think is the figure he's looking for. It's ambitious.
It could be 15.
It could be 15. It's ambitious. He's going to get resistance from the Democrats, but it's expected to pass, and then we'll see how it gets debated between now and Christmas. But that's going to have a big impact. And Ireland's very slow to catch up on things like this. We're going to really have to think outside the box to how we compete with this.
Well, we've been saying it on the site for years. I mean, forget about the reputational damage that the tax thing has done to us. I know that there's 120,000 employees, but it is inevitable that America are going to claw those jobs back. I mean, that's why Trump was elected, effectively. It wasn't for,
well, it is and it isn't. I mean, there's always going to be a need to have a European operations for a lot of companies and to have a presence in Ireland. It just really, the quality of those jobs is I guess, is a question mark over that.
But the call center jobs, or are they?
There's no engineers in Google. I mean, they're just people on the phones.
I don't know if that's strictly true. They wouldn't certainly have as large an engineering base, but some of the tech companies I know do have techies, European-based techies in Ireland.
Okay, well, I think Google particularly have no engineers like here. I mean, you know, we are genuinely like the back office of the back office.
Call centers. just there. We are still the only English speakers in the Eurozone, so that is an advantage.
That's a myth as well. You only have to go to Holland, to Germany, to Belgium, and people are fluent in English.
Yeah,
that is a myth. And another thing as well that we forget about Brexit and about the likes of France, you know, London is still the financial capital in many ways of Europe, and that's not really going to change despite Brexit. And one of the things that the UK can always offer and France can always offer is a train from London to Paris, and we don't have anything that we can offer in that regard. When you're in Ireland, and you have to get a plane to go anywhere. And that thing still comes up, which I don't necessarily agree 100% with, but people look at Ireland and still question why we don't have a train that goes from our airport to our capital.
I know, but the situation is that we don't have the money to spend on the infrastructure because we're not collecting a competitive corporation tax, number one, and in some cases no tax at all. But what I would say though, Neil, and
13 million would do a lot.
Looking in the future, why don't we just work off the basis that these companies are going to go, they're going to do a Dell at some stage?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to be thinking like that. We need to be planning for a doomsday scenario because it's inevitable at some stage. Because if you know, sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
Sorry, Neil, but do you remember during the budget I remarked about that employers' PSI is a cash cow, and we need to fix that, or we need to work on PSI. And it was the same when Martha McMahon was on the show. And all these employers, they mightn't be paying corporation tax, but they're paying employers' PSI, and it's a huge cash cow. So when they go, there's a huge dent in the cash cow.
Yeah. And we have a pension time bomb as it is, and the economy is healthy. Can you imagine
our social welfare is going to be bankrupt?
Yeah. But another thing to consider, John, if you think back to the recession, I don't know if you guys remember this. When the UK hit the recession, Ireland, obviously, because we needed a bailout, we started taxing our way out of a recession, which you can't do. But the British started investing when they hit the recession to avoid a double dip. And they offered incentives. They were looking at the industries that were up and coming. And they offered big incentives to gaming companies to set up in London. And attract a lot of business that way. Now, if I was the government, I'd be looking at the emerging industries, and you know, it's fairly obvious at this stage. The video game industry is massive, and there's a lot of pull there. And they don't necessarily have to be based in the US. In fact, there's a lot of gaming companies in the UK, but also the artificial intelligence is going to be huge as well. So we need to be looking at that in a more focused way to attract those companies.
Do you know what else? They don't have to be based in Dublin either. They can those industries can easily set up in Leitrim or Clare or Offaly or South Tip, or you know what I mean. They don't necessarily have to be Dublin based. And actually, do you know, that's where we actually have to think first, lads, is to think at developing outside Dublin, because we can ease the housing crisis as well, and the overcrowding in schools and the cost of childcare.
Developing what?
But how about infrastructure? How about rolling out broadband that's at least decent for people?
Why? Okay, sorry, Neil, go on.
No, I was just going to say, one last time. Sorry, Johnny. Just one thing about that, though, is they'll look at airports. International companies will look at airports. And at the moment, if you want to get to Ireland, you either go to Dublin or you go to Shannon. So if it's not close to Dublin or Shannon, forget about it. They won't be interested.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The only thing that works in this country are the motorways. So they were built in the last boom, the only one we had. So that means that rural Ireland was basically cut off from the rest of the country for infrastructure. So you've got your M9, you can go from Waterford to Belfast without having to pass one traffic light. And Dublin Airport, you pass on your way. You go from Galway to Dublin within an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, and you pass Dublin Airport on your way. So that's a myth, Neil, in relation to you need an airport and you need a train. Offaly is an hour away from Dublin Airport. Belfast is an hour away from Dublin. Everything is central to Dublin Airport. So when you go outside, for example, build something in Offaly where there's nothing, where Brian Cowan built nothing, he had the chance to build a convention center, a stadium, or a music center. He did all those three things in Dublin. He did that as Minister of Finance. So there's a stronghold in relation to the rural and urban divide. It's like the Pale again. Everything happens inside the Pale. So from a culture, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
No,
so
I agree, Johnny.
But hold on a second, Neil. It's not understood within the Pale that IT and AI and all this Futurama that we never knew we had, and all of a sudden we can't live without it. We need to address the serious situation. Vera Toomey, a campaigner, and this goes to Power of One, and I want to bring Mick Wallace and Claire Daly and independents into this, and fuck this party system, right? I want to bring the power of individuals. Vera Toomey walked from Cork to Dublin. I was delighted to walk with her for about 10 miles of that journey. And by the time she got to Dublin, Richard or Simon Harris wouldn't come out and see her. She persisted, and she persisted, and she persisted to the point that Simon Harris missed all the shit that was going on, the shitstorm of Fine Gael, thought he was being smart, and he was going to give her child, Ava's, the medicine that she's been looking for. So basically, he's given her the medicine that she needs. But as far as I'm concerned, the gates are open. Anyone who suffers chronic pain, there was a journalist on the news this evening talking about it, that he's in chronic pain. He needs this THC cannabis. So we can't afford to have this conservative Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil mindset and help out the pharmaceutical companies and the IT companies and all that bollocks, when there is the middle of Ireland, the bog is made for fucking cannabis and hemp products, all that eco-friendly stuff that the Catholic Church, the conservative parties want to discredit and disown us. We need to take our lead from civilized countries, because we are so backward, it's fucking pathetic.
But sorry, Johnny, what have you done about it? Have you made but have you made an application to the local authority to do this? To apply for a special exemption?
For a special exemption for what? To grow hemp? Oh, of course it is. Yes, I know people are doing it.
But have you done that?
Have I done it personally? No, but I'm behind people that are doing it, Vanessa. So, I'm here to make a few points about what's not being said. So, are you having to go at me personally for what I am or what I'm not doing? No, but I'm asking
you. You talked about walking with Vera, and she got up and she did it.
Absolutely.
We're talking about Catherine Corris, who's got up and did it. I'm asking you, have you actually even looked into making an application?
It's not to do with me. I'm highlighting the issue, Vanessa. And by the way, I have. I've supported guys that have done it. That's neither here nor there. So I'm just making the point that I know these people personally. I'm not saying how great I am. I'm saying how great they are. They've done stuff individually. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm highlighting the stuff. Yeah. That's why I'm on this program, Vanessa, to highlight stuff that's not being highlighted in the mainstream media. And I take that very personally. So if you want to have a go at me for what I'm doing or not doing, I don't give a shit.
You didn't have a go at you at all.
Right. No, you exactly had to go at me. You exactly had to go at me. You asked me, what am I doing? And you interjected me as well.
And what did you answer?
You're good at interjecting, Vanessa. I listen to you. Can you just listen for a second and then you can talk? Is that okay?
Okay.
Is it?
Okay. We're cool.
Right. No, I think I've made my point, John, in relation to industry. Let's look outside the box. And I just said, this stuff, the Yanks aren't going to hang around. Trump called us out today. That was the second time in a week. Yeah. So he knows what's going on in Ireland in relation to our tax haven, because that's what it is. And the French are going to have their 10 and 15%. So we have to think. And the biggest one at the moment is growing cannabis. And that is big tourism. Yeah. The amount of jobs is amazing. It's a $1 billion, or in America, in Colorado, for example, it's a $1 billion industry in that state alone. Can you imagine what that would be in Ireland? What's the problem? The Republican Party, Fianna Fáil, they want to build distilleries and all this beer, whiskey. The idea of people smoking spliffs, John, that's a cultural revolution.
Yeah.
So, and this new cultural minister, who hates travellers, by the way.
Hang on.
Okay. Let's see. Maybe she used the opportunity that the media have branded her that she does, and turn it around and have a cultural event that travellers can be the headline of. I get behind that.
Yeah.
I've got a few ideas on that. I've submitted emails to the Minister for Arts down through the years. I've also emailed the Minister for Justice over a few things. I want to talk about that thing now, and I'll finish on this, right?
Okay.
I want to go back in relation to how Fitzgerald just walked into the sunset. She's still a TD. She didn't lose her job. She resigned. Load of bollocks. So let's talk about that infamous email that I was interested as well by Olga, actually. So that was sent to the minister, and she then contacted the minister or the Department of Justice to get advice. So there we have it now. So we have within the Department of Justice civil servants, high-profile civil servants who are on serious amounts of money that are there. They're careerists, by the way. They're not here every 5 years. They're there the whole time. So what I would like to figure out or find out, who are these people in these departments, these senior civil servants that are able to tell exactly these ministers what to say? That's kind of interesting, is it not? No?
Yeah, no, I mean, the Secretary General of the Department of Justice put forward his
resignation.
His resignation. Put it forward for next year, and he put it forward for this week, so he's left this week.
So who actually talked to Fitzgerald through the RTE interview?
Who briefed her?
Look, it was Ken O'Leary.
Ken O'Leary. Okay, so is he still in his job?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think.
But no, is that the government? Is that the way it's run? Like, you know that.
Well,
that's the way the senior civil service is run, Johnny.
Yeah, but Johnny, they would have told her. I mean, it's really up to her then to act on that. They can't go beyond their remit, I guess.
Okay, so all right, so that I understand that's the remit, but do they be pulled into the
it's
Public Accounts Committee? No,
it's completely outrageous. They were in cahoots with the guards, with the commissioner in terms of the legal strategy. They knew exactly what it was, and they passed on this information to the minister. They didn't. In the letter that we've seen or the emails we've seen, there was no encouragement to alert the McCabe's to the strategy or whatever. But
I understand. So the point I'm getting to, John, is this Department of Justice today. It'll be another department tomorrow. The HSE, these guys in the civil service. When was the last time any of them was sacked? Has there been any situation in that in relation to the Angola that is the HSE?
I don't know.
The amount of shit that's went on there. Has any senior civil servant ever got sacked from the HSE or the Department of Justice?
Well,
Brian Purcell. Why not?
Brian Purcell, Johon.
Brian Purcell resigned. I mean,
it was
Roddy Malloy. He was kind of told, F off, wasn't he?
I have to hand it to Charlie Flanagan. I thought he was terrible in the Dáil, but he said that it was an entirely coincidental that Noel Waters resigned last week on the same day.
Yeah, and he said, I think didn't he say that he was kind of still digesting the news of his resignation when word of the email came in, and he simply misunderstood the significance of it, wasn't it?
Noel Waters rang him and said, "Listen, this email here. We found this email." Charlie goes, "Oh no, that's terrible. But listen, I'm resigning." So
I'm resigning. No one gets sacked. Everyone resigns. So when you resign, you don't lose any of your accrements. Is that right?
Yeah, you don't.
It's cheaper for the taxpayer if they resign, I think.
I'd prefer to see a fella going in a few shekels.
They'd have had their meeting. They'd have had their meeting with the Super An officer before any of that happened. They'd have known exactly what their situation was in terms of what their exit would be, or if they transferred to somewhere else for if they had like 2 years left at their full pension, they will have quietly arranged to take another post somewhere else. And that's gardening leave pretty much.
Musical chairs.
Years in at grade 8, I'd be gone as well.
Is the
what would I be doing hanging around?
Has the reluctance?
I don't know. Maybe a conscience. The oath that you take to collective responsibility.
What makes you think they'd a conscience?
But Grand. I'm taking this very seriously, Vanessa, because they took an oath. So they just.
What oath did you
a collective responsibility. Is that not an oath in Dáil Éireann, no?
Well, it's a cabinet.
Sorry, are you saying senior civil servants took an oath?
I would like to think senior civil servants take an oath as well. No, I'm talking about the politicians.
Well, just 1 second, Neil. Can the reluctance to take on the Department of Justice? What reasons would you give for that over the years? Is it the fact that they would have all the information on everybody. I mean, if you're a politician wanting to take on the Department of Justice, you're going to have to be pretty untainted.
Yeah. I mean, it's we're tinfoil hat possibly, now, but yeah, that's the speculation that I would
not
have.
tinfoil hat at all, Neil. No, it's just anything that seems to be controversial, that seems to be the catch cry. It's not.
No, I use that. No, I do. I say it tongue in cheek, Johnny. You're right, but you always got a question, But it's very obvious for us, But maybe, for Dáil Éireann, it's a little different. But it's accountability again. Where does the buck stop? And actually, just on a note, which I think will complement some of the things Johnny was saying, that I didn't catch the full piece, but I think there's a vigil on this weekend. I learned something I didn't know before. So our defence forces are paid less than the minimum wage. And there was a lady on the radio who was talking about her husband who's in the army or in the defence forces, and he was working a 24-hour shift today, and he'll get €20 pay for the shift. And obviously we know the defence forces aren't allowed to strike, but they're also not allowed to talk paying conditions as part of their tenure. I don't know what the word is. So the families and the partners of the defence forces are holding a vigil to highlight this. That's pretty. And the reason I caught my eye was because I think it was the Journal.ie ran a piece this week about the price of alcohol in the barracks bar going up, and of course there's a great chance for the rest of us to give out about the shock of their points going up 10 cents to 3.10 or something like that. But you kind of, when you look at the two pieces together, you kind of have to ask the question about, cheap alcohol, poor salary, what's going on there. But that's pretty shocking. Surely that has to be illegal in some way, shape, or form if we're doing that, if we're paying such poorly.
Yeah, and
they've closed down. They've closed down rural Ireland again. They've closed down these barracks, and it is crazy. I seen that, Neil. And it's 24-hour vigil tonight, in the morning. So there's people freezing with placards outside the Leinster House tonight, and there was a man who died there in Owen Murphy's constituency in Ranelagh. Still don't know his name. Haven't seen it printed anywhere.
No.
I asked him on when he was on the Tonight Show, TV3, to ask him the question, what's his name? Because I know, you could ring Donnybrook Garda Station, I suppose, and they might tell you, or maybe there's a waiting period to let the family know. But I don't like these people who die from homelessness to have no name, and they died in a tent. I think that's completely disrespectful, and I'm obviously being disrespectful by saying it now as well myself. But these people have names and they had lives, and I think we should honour them. Maybe something like a plaque or just a credit after the 9 o'clock news of the people who died this year due to homelessness, and things like that. We need to keep in the main psyche. So at the risk of or saying something different, I just wanted to say in relation to how Sinn Féin, Fianna Gael and Fianna Fáil got great national time in relation to the mainstream media, and Mick Wallace and Claire Daly got nothing. Literally got nothing. They weren't even acknowledged within Leinster House. They were all grandstanding to say how great they were. And none of them give a Highlander fuck about Maurice McCabe. I can guarantee you that. But the people that did was Claire Daly and Mick Wallace. And Giggity Goo made a very good comment in the threads there this week. He said it doesn't really matter what you think of words to the effect. I'm not going to quote him because I don't have it. But like, it was basically he's there 7 years, himself and Claire Daly, and the dent that they've put in Dáil Éireann in relation to the establishment parties has been phenomenal. So don't try to tell me that independents don't make a difference. So if you can imagine, there's loads of independents, there's loads of decent, honest, hard-working civil servants out there that are snookered with bureaucracy, and they make fantastic politicians, like Catherine Connolly, like Joan Collins, like there's loads of them in there. So if you had a part or a government of TDs, independent TDs, what you would have is honest, hard-working, straightforward people. They're not part of a party whip. They're not part of this bullshit. So parties actually don't need to work. And Ireland is an unbelievable. This is the bones of my frustration, that we haven't. We've got so much decency and honour and credibility and loveliness from an international perspective, but we really fuck up ourselves from the inside out. And it has to start with the political parties. Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil have to be gone. This general election will happen early 2018, and people need to get out and vote independent. That's what I'd be doing. That's what
but how would you form a government?
Johnny,
very easy. Very easy. Very easy. Very easy.
Tell me. I'd love to know.
Right. Okay. So, say for example, you are a banker working in a financial institution. Maybe go independent and say, listen, I've been in this system. It doesn't work. These are my new ideas. If I am voted in independent, I will be looking to become Minister for Finance. Okay. So, there, for example, you've got the right person doing the right job. Then someone has a problem in the HSC, a consultant, that's bureaucracy again, that can't get the medicine to the right people, knows how fucked up the system is from the inside out, runs as an independent and say, get me into Dáil and I will go for Minister for Health. It's very easy.
That consultant will have to.
It's very easy, simple. It breaks down.
That consultant will have to canvass every other member of the new Dáil to give them their vote to elect him the next Minister of Health. Is that what you're saying?
If they're honest and decent people, they'll do that, yeah. But maybe if they're Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, they won't. They'll look after their own interest.
Johnny, I'll tell you what, guys, I have to go to the bathroom, believe it or not. So, work amongst yourselves. Vanessa, perhaps you could, how would you have voted if there would be an election before Christmas? How would you all have voted?
South Central, I like this term here, Breed Collins. She has turned out to be a fabulous performer here, I think, in Leinster House. And she scroped that last seat. That's about it. I don't really have much of a choice here in South Central.
Neil, which way would you have gone?
No, I'm not living in this area that long, so I'm not even sure who my options would be. I know that we've got a green, the only green got voted in this area. I'd probably spoil my vote. I'd be so angry at the moment.
Really, yeah. Johnny, would you? Can he go work?
I actually still have my vote in Offaly. I haven't changed it. So every time there's an election or a referendum, I usually just go up and do my father ritual. So unfortunately, I have to say, I was forced to vote for Sinn Féin in the last election because that's the only option I had. That's the only option I had. There was no independent left winger, or there was no one from People for Profit in Offaly because it's a Fianna Fáil country. Barry Cowan could I don't know what he could do. He could set up.
Oh, you have a beer bonus.
But no, Barry Cowan could set up another state agents and rip off people, and they still vote for him. Okay. You know, so there you go. That's the way.
Okay, Johnny. Sorry. Neil, but how would you have voted? Which party would you have voted? Would you have given your vote to?
I don't know. I mean, there's no winners at the moment. I mean, I've always had a soft spot for Micheál.
Ah, you devil! I knew it.
Yeah, but I've said it before. There's you've got Micheál. The way he handled the smoking ban years ago was always, I think, one of the greatest. That's all he's done.
Kill pub culture. He killed pub culture.
But then again, Stephen Donnelly, I'd always cause a soft spot for Stephen Donnelly. That guy was smooth. Now he's a Fianna Fáiler. Add it up. 2 + 2 is 5.
You're indirectly saying something there, Neil.
No, I'm not. I am taking the piss. I do think Micheál has good traits, and I think Leo, who I'm not a fan of, has demonstrated some good leadership as well.
Fianna Fáil have a very good candidate here in South Central now, Arda. And so I think she'll do well the next when the vote comes around. I suspect we are looking at an election in the spring, though.
I think
Micheál will bring them in.
I agree, but before we go on, Vanessa, Olga has to show us her cards.
Well, I think I'm Dublin Central. I only moved here last year, so I'm not sure. So I think I'm Dublin Central, Sunnybatter. Is that right, Vanessa?
That's Dublin Central.
You might be South Central, actually, because Phoenix Park comes into South Central.
Is it South Central and not Central?
I think it's Central. Sunnybatter, I think it's Central.
I definitely, I think so, because I definitely had.
I think you get to vote for Mary Lou then. I think you might be voting for Mary Lou.
Mary Lou, and Pascal.
Maureen,
so Gary Gannon is in this constituency, so I'd probably vote for him.
Do you know the Bertie's former running mate or something? I think you might be voting for her. Okay. You'll have a lot of independents there anyway, definitely. But where Anne-Marie McNally's running now, Jesus Christ, there'll be 20 plus candidates there.
No.
But here's the thing, Johnny, you were saying about Frances Fitz going up, running for re-election again. You know, the only people that can actually sack her, by the way, are her constituents.
Yeah. But
so, you know, like, she's been sacked as a minister, or she's resigned as a minister.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's up to her constituents to actually remove her from her role.
Yeah, but we need to, as a nation, I take that point, Vanessa, but as a nation, we really need to have a grown-up conversation about what way we vote.
Why should I discuss how I vote?
Okay, well, no, here's the thing, right? I said this to someone, 3 people that I know fairly well. And I said, you know, it's fucked up. Like, you know, what way do you vote? Oh, that's a very personal question. I was going, well, I don't think it is. I'm voting for anyone left that has that will look at repealing the aid, legalize, make Ireland a more liberal society. It's a swing all over the world in relation to centre left, and that's the way the young people are with campaigns. How are we going to change the world? How are we going to be a little bit more environmentally friendly and open to global warming and climate change, all real issues that affect the world. That's the way young people think. They don't think of this insular parochial shit that most people who vote do. What parish pump politics? What can you do for me? Well, there's an awful lot of people like you, Vanessa. But what I want to do, I want to call people like you out. If you believe in your party or your TD, let me argue with you. Let me convince you otherwise. Because people know that they have Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. They know that their father got something from them. Their mother did something.
No, well, you're assuming I vote
I'm not assuming. I
vote for the candidate.
I'm not assuming at all, Vanessa. I said I want people to engage with me so I know what way they think, so I can convince them otherwise. I don't want people to say, that's a very private thing. I don't think it is. If you believe in voting for someone, you should be loud and proud and say, I'm voting for this person because of A, B, and C. But it's a big secret in Ireland. Oh no!
But I think to look at it from both sides, we're a nation that worships pothole politics, and I think that's one of the flaws of our system. Is we're voting for the local politician who will look after you, who'll take care of you, but they may not be the best choice for the nation. And
but that's misinformation against Neil, and I'm sorry to cut across you, man. But it's like you vote people in to legislate on a national level. You vote, if you're talking about pothole politics and parish pump politics, that's council material. And even at that, it shouldn't be done. But that's the way it is.
But that's the reality of it. Like, I mean, look at Matty McGrath, and you know, he had a lot of people behind him. But you know,
but that's a skewed vision of the city looking down the rural again. Like it's not all like that, man.
No, but I'm just using it as an example. There's plenty around Dublin as well. I mean, I couldn't question the Green Party vote here. You know, why she's obviously very good at what she does, but are people voting for the Green Party, or are they voting for what she does for her constituents?
Well, think of it like, what do they do for the constituents? It's promises. Because you really can you do anything? Can you actually jump people up the list in the HSE? Can you do that? Is that legal?
They can canvass. They can work for their constituency and contact the various patient services managers. But here's the thing, Johnny: the biggest poll toppers in the country in the last general election were independents. They weren't party people at all. Good. So they're actually working on behalf of their constituents at ground level, and they're getting the response. Healy Rays, they're likely to be bringing in 3 seats this time round, next time round, and it looks like Lowry's are going to be bringing in. They're not dealing with national issues. They're dealing with local issues. So, like, if you really want to put truth to this thing you're on about, independent, and we're all going to get national issues through. The people want representatives that work for them locally. I'm here in Dublin South Central, the most complex constituency in the country. We have no ministers. We have one of the most densest populations. We've one of the biggest industrial outputs in the country. We have the 3 biggest hospitals in the country in this constituency. right? And yet we have no ministers. So I am interested in a candidate that represents this constituency, from income that averages that goes from $250,000 down to the flattest social welfare you're going to get. You need a 6-figure income to buy in this constituency now.
Right? And it's not going to get any better. It's going to get a lot worse. Decentralization needs to be a serious issue now again.
Guys,
the schools, all the breakfast clubs.
Vanessa, I think
we need.
No. I just think that the example of Claire and Mick is they're not dealing with local parochial issues as such. They're dealing with national issues. The Maurice McCabe story and others. There's room for them as well, right? Vanessa?
Yeah. It's very important to have people like that because they perform very well on these more complicated issues. That's not meant to say Michael Healy-Rae or Matthew McGrath wouldn't manage a serious debate on Brexit. But the reality of it is that they're articulate enough to make a very good argument on certain more global issues, okay? But the reality of it is, if you really want to sing and dance to Johnny's tune there about voting independent, and they have to represent the people nationally and legislate nationally, that's not the reality. People want their representatives to look after their constituency. They're no more arsed about what the next what's going on in Leinster House. They want to know what's going on down there.
Yes, grand, but in the real world, you can't.
Yeah, you want to talk about the real world. The real world is the majority of the constituencies are outside Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're interested in local issues.
Okay, I just want to go to something.
It's a government, national government, like
something less political. Stephen Garland, who Johnny's friend, who was on the show about 2 weeks ago, was it?
Yeah. Garland.
He was on for a couple of weeks, and there's a fantastic picture of him in hospital in.
Can you see that?
He's got a few videos up as well on his Facebook page. Stop my PPMS.
I tweeted him the other night.
Yeah.
Can I see that?
How's he getting on, Johnny?
His life of luxury, but he had a bee in his bonnet in relation to why all this has to happen in Russia. I said, "What's the crack there?" He says, "Well, there's a fella from Dublin beside him.
Yeah,
he's doing the same thing." So Garland has always been a campaigner and an activist for an awful lot of issues. So I think he's going to really. I was just worried that the chemo that he's going to be blasted with, 2 million stem cells, going to be taken, that's going to be heavy duty.
Mm-hmm.
But he seems to be grand. Really good surroundings. Very hand care. He's talking about the health care, very personal. He says, that the attention to detail is unbelievable, and that's from a Russian consultant. He knows so much about his patient. He says he's very surprised by it. Right. And as I said, the care and the understanding, through the process. So he doesn't have a care in the world, which is absolutely brilliant. But hopefully, touch wood, that the therapy might be, because they say it's a few days afterwards. But he's after getting the first dose. I think he was meant to wait 5 days, but you had to only wait 3. So it's progressing nicely. It gets out for a few hours a day with his lovely wife Valeska, and they see the sights. They're culture vultures in their own right, so they're very impressed with Moscow. But I don't know if he's been out today or yesterday. So the next few days, thoughts and energy with him totally. Stephen is but he actually says, would it be all right to get on Broadsheet for a few minutes? And I was going, I think that'll be no problem. Yeah. Everyone seems to like you there. Next thing, all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. Can you keep it down? so they're 3 hours ahead. So it's about 1 o'clock there now, or 2 o'clock. So it's not going to be a runner. But I think a lot of your contributors and listeners will be interested in how he's getting on.
Yeah.
And he's he's profiling it as he goes. So stop my PPMS. at Twitter.
PPMS stands for progressive
primary progressive multiple sclerosis.
Multiple sclerosis, and it's
so he's there till the 21st anyway, and
21st of December.
21st of December, and then he'll be back in Ireland and in quarantine.
Oh no, for 3 months or for 2 months is it?
2 months, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so
but he's a fire. He's a character.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy, and hopefully maybe we can we can do a pre-record or something next week, and
I'd say it's cool.
Next week is an important show, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah. So next week is the Broadsheet Christmas Toy Show. That's working title.
Christmas, the Broadsheet Adult Toy Show, is it?
The Adult Toy Show.
Apple toys.
No,
adult toys.
I was dying to hear what Johnny had to say about adult toys, and they're being made in some foreign factory, and rural Ireland was being neglected about them, and that was in the Midlands or something like this.
Not really into adult toys now, Vanessa.
Well, we'll take in a broadsheet style look at what the toy show should be. Maybe a trip down nostalgia lane. We might look at some of the foods of Christmas here and there.
You're producing it anyway, Neil. But but
nice
also, Neil, you have this weekend's entertainment in the cinema and on television.
I do, yeah. So a couple of things to give a shout out for. There's 2 movie releases out this weekend. One of them, to me, is one of the biggest releases of the year. I'll start with the first one is a film called Roman Israel Esquire. It stars Denzel Washington and Colin Farrell. Not getting great reviews. So Denzel Washington plays an activist lawyer, and Colin Farrell plays another ambitious lawyer who is out for money. And basically, Denzel Washington's getting really good reviews in terms of his performance, but allegedly it's left down by the script. But that's out this weekend. But the film, though, I'm very excited about is a film called The Disaster Artist, which is directed and stars James Franco, and is it's a book written by it's based on the film The Room by the genius known as Tommy Wiseau. And it's a cult film that does screenings all around the world, including here in Dublin. And it's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show on steroids. And one of the stars, Greg Sestero, wrote this book, The Disaster Artist, and Franco has been working on this and has brought it to the screen. The initial reports on it are very positive. I know one of the cast members of the original Room, and he told me about his experience and what it was like to watch somebody play him on screen. So I'm very excited about this. Now, I think it'll appeal more so to people who have seen The Room and appreciate the cultishness of it. And The Room is very much a film. It's nothing to do with that very serious film called Room. We must not get the two of them mixed up. But there's a pretty good cast with this. I'd normally avoid Seth Rogen like the plague, but he's a part, and Kirsten Bell plays herself, and our friend from Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston, also plays himself in this. And they're both the Franco brothers as well. So certainly the trailers and the clips I've seen looks the Franco has nailed Wiseau, but it's a fascinating. The backstory to the original film is fascinating, so I'm very excited about this one. But leaving the cinema, there's 2 things I did want to mention, and I'm no way being paid or tipped off to do this. One caught my eye for the weekend. The Lighthouse Cinema are holding a Nakatomi Tower 80s office party tomorrow night. Followed by. It starts. The party starts at 9 o'clock, and
are you
the
wearing
film.
The white vest?
Just a white vest and no shoes.
Yeah.
And Die Hard will be screened at 10:45. The greatest Christmas film ever. Die Hard.
Yeah. Are we going?
We're all going. We're going.
Are we allowed to go?
What year was
it? It was 1980.
88.
Was it 88? I thought it was.
I'm guessing. But
little known fact about Die Hard is it's actually a sequel. It's a sequel to a film called The Detective. Frank Sinatra started a film called The Detective, which is based on a book. And they wanted to make a sequel, but then they had to totally change it. And Die Hard is now what the sequel to Detective was going to be.
I read that
Frank
book.
Sinatra is the original. Sorry, John.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he wasn't called John McClane.
No, go on.
So you've read the book, John. And what's interesting about it is people don't know that it's based on a book, yet at the opening credits it does say based on the book.
Oh right, no, I didn't read the Die Hard book, but I read the Detective.
Yeah.
It's very, very dark. I mean, it's
yeah.
I can't see Bruce Willis.
But you know, I've had this discussion with friends before. You know, Bruce Willis is the greatest action star of all time. Like,
look, it's the best line, isn't it, Neil? Yippee-ki-yay!
And that was Alan Rickman's first feature film as well, and it shot him to stardom.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. So, so it ticks all the boxes. Gives you that. It gives you all the warmness that Christmas brings. Watching that film.
I love that movie.
Yeah. Guns and Bombs. Great American film.
That's tomorrow night in the Lighthouse Cinema. I've no idea if it's sold out, but it starts at 9. A party starts at 9. It's an 80s theme party, and then the film screening is at 11:15.
Okay.
It's clashing with the toy show.
Do you dress up in ripped wife beater and?
I think you have to. You can also bring a shitload of cocaine and say you're just playing the character of
the guy
in the office,
the weak guy.
Show him the watch.
There's always
Holly.
The disaster movies.
I get to play Holly.
Weak, morally kind of compromised guy. In the Poseidon Adventure, there was a guy like that as well. And the Terry Inferno.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there was something else I wanted to ask. If there's any book reviewers, anybody who would like to review non-fiction, Irish non-fiction, and
Maurice McCabe's book. Could we review that?
I beg your pardon?
Review Maurice McCabe's book, Mick Clifford's book on Maurice McCabe.
Yeah. I mean,
bit late for that now, isn't it?
It's been out a good few weeks now.
Coming up to Christmas. I thought everyone was going to buy that.
Well, I think it's going to be a huge seller this Christmas. It should be a huge seller. And
Marcel's book.
I don't know. I think Ryan somebody's got a book about Hillary Clinton, and obviously it has to be bought.
Oh, well, I'll buy that.
No, he's children's book about Peter and the President, about a young boy who meets JFK on his visit.
That's Turbert he has. He's going to have all the kids reviewing it on the toy show tomorrow.
Tragedy.
Well, I tell you who's going to be on. I bet you those guys from...
Are you, Johnny? You're not watching the
guys from X Factor.
Neil, will you be watching it?
No. I wanted to pay tribute to Patrick Kavanagh. He's buried 50 years ago today. So I think,
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to call you out on this, Johnny, right? Because I know you appreciate the poetry and his poetry is beautiful. But a lot of the comments I've seen on Twitter and in the news today are all about having a dig at us for not remembering our poetry from school. The Journal ran a poll about what do you remember from Kavanagh. The only thing I remember about Kavanagh is that bloody poem he wrote about getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. That's all I can remember about Kavanagh.
For me, it's the line.
That's Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
Well, I had a very bad English teacher. When he started talking about Yeats and Kavanagh, the Kavanagh is describing the canal walk. The bridge has eyes. So you're in school, you're 15 and 16, you're just interested in getting the shift and getting the games class or something. So you really need an inspiring teacher to kind of grab your attention. And unfortunately, there hasn't been too many of them. But I've got serious respect for Kavanagh out of all the poets because he was rural, and he was able to describe the beauty. He was able to describe the beauty of rural Ireland, and then when he came to Dublin, he was able to look at it with negativity and hatred. So and that's the power of an artist, of a poet that can change their outlook on life, basically like a weathercock. It's like they just sit there right in the middle and they go whichever way the wind blows, and their creativeness knows no boundaries. So Kavanagh encapsulated all of that. So he'd probably be, definitely the best Irish poet I would consider. So
Johnny, you're a bit of a weathercock yourself.
I don't like to commit myself to anything in particular.
Save it for the toy show.
But I don't know what you mean by that, John. But I just.
I was just introducing a little bit of levity.
After it's been quite the show, quite a tempestuous at times show. So if there are any book reviewers of non-fiction or fiction, Broadsheet at broadsheet.ie, and put it for Bodger's attention if you can. Olga, are there any other final papers from?
No, we don't have any other papers. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
And the British papers lead.
The British papers leading with yeah, I think there's mostly Brexit. Sorry. Let me see.
Okay.
Can you see that there? Sorry, I got the wrong one.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Brexit. That's sorry. So
that's the
yeah, a lot of it's about the Trump tweets. You know, him retweeting those tweets.
He tweeted from the far right burst, which were
the motorists misled about bridge chaos, the snow.
Okay.
So finally,
Johnny, will you be watching the toy show tomorrow, Johnny?
Tomorrow, no, I definitely won't. Do you know what? No, I don't like the toy show, but I used to really hate it when I was younger because there was only Billy Barry kids in Ireland that could do anything, and they were really annoying. So at least there's be a few interesting heads that are great characters. There's a fella there who's an interest in clocks, John Joe. I think they bring him on. He's beautiful. He's brilliant, and a little farmer fella from Offaly as well. So I think they're characters that have been. So I look at the snippets the following day, but no. See, well, that's the thing. It's a family thing, really, isn't it? So we're blessed. We don't have any little terrors hopping around, going crazy for the late show because they do my head in.
Isn't it nice stuff?
But I understand everyone's into it.
Neil?
I think it's great.
She's I think it's nice to have. It's like as much as we like to shit on Ryan Tubridy at times. It's nice to have a primetime Friday night slot that is. A late night show that's all about kids and toys, and it's just the innocence of it, the joy of celebrating Christmas and for what it means to children above anything else. It's nice to be nice for the 2.5 hours that it's on the telly.
Not too materialistic, not too for parents.
Of course it is, but that's the reality of Christmas. People forget the true meaning of Christmas, the birth of Santa Claus.
Yeah, I think there's too much Christianity in Christmas at the moment. I think we really need to.
Not so much now. I think.
I was joking, Vanessa. I was joking. Sorry. Will you be watching the late tomorrow?
Me?
Yes.
Of course, I wouldn't miss it. The one thing I would say about the Late Toy Show is that it's probably on its 3rd generation now. You know, we all sit down and watch it, and that's the only thing Tubridy for me. It's the only thing Tubridy's got right. He's the best at the toy show.
He's the best. Oh yeah, I totally agree. He's great at hosting.
And what you're saying about it being materialistic, most of the toys featured tomorrow are within most of the viewers' price range.
And a lot of them should be Irish, are they?
When we were watching it in the 80s and 70s and 80s, you know, most of the products were out of our families or you know, most of them were for American kids. Really, we never got them. We were getting them next year or the year after. You know.
But
anyway,
we didn't get Stretch Armstrong to the north.
But there's no
exactly, John. And it's something we've had for years. It's an institution. And, you know, it's the most harmless piece of TV that everyone has a story about. And I know tomorrow night, it's all going to be about the jumpers, who's on it, who's not. And I suppose the 2 guys from in X Factor are going to be on. You know, the brothers, Connor and the Prices, I think. Yeah. I think it's... All right, Johnny, it's all yours. That's it.
No. I'm just going. You seem very excited about that. That's my Christmas made up, Vanessa. That you're happy about it.
Well,
Johnny, come on. The toy show is great. It's
I was going. Yeah, I appreciate Vanessa's happiness. Like I just, my mother used to give us 50 pence to go up to the Sale of Work. The Friday, it was just amazing that the Sale of Work. I don't know if you have it in your local parish hall, but it was amazing. You'd have a deck of cards, and if you picked the Queen of Clubs, you could get an aftershave for your father or an apple. You know, it was really, you know, you didn't know, and the element of surprise was just unbelievable. And that's Christmas morning. It's not really what you get; it's the element of surprise. It's the beauty and love that goes on around us, and the they tried to say that the Late Late Show is an institution. Nah, don't think so. But
okay.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't know. I'm not crazy on it. I got to say, and I think because it's prime time, you know, it's Friday night. I know it's an institution, but it's obviously just flogging toys, you know.
But I don't think that the show is paid to flog those toys. I do think it's genuinely whatever they feel is.
No,
which to be fair, wouldn't be said about other TV shows on other TV stations. You know, you couldn't do it in the US.
Yeah,
we're looking for that dark cloud amongst the silver lining. We may have to just accept it's a nice, happy, family-friendly thing.
Fair enough. Okay, well, not to worry.
Definitely family.
A couple of things. Irvin Muchnick is on concussion.net, and the video that we spoke about on the show is on broadsheet.ie right now, but it was posted around mid-morning, so if you look at around 11 o'clock. Anything else?
I give a shameless plug, John, would you mind?
Please, shameless plug.
I after a bit of a hiatus, I'm back performing my Neil Plus One signature improv show. I'm on this Monday night in the weekly Tightrope event. This Monday I'm on Tightropes on every Sunday and Monday and on Shaw on Camden Street. And this Monday, 7:45, I'm taking Neil Plus One back to Tightrope. So if you want to see me in person and call me names to my face, I'll be there.
Brilliant. That's on Shaw in Camden Street.
Yeah.
Starts at 8?
Doors open at 7:45. Show starts about 8.
Brilliant. Okay, and we'll do a plug on the side as well. Any other business, Johnny Alga?
Just a great man from Kilkenny, I suppose. If there's any Kilkenny viewers, Willie Mean. He was an institution. He had the roller coaster records. It used to be top 20, and he took it over. And he brought some amazing bands to Kilkenny. He was part of the Rhythm and Roots, which is one of the best, smallest festivals. It's on every May bank holiday. Willie was a driving force behind. His funeral mass this morning was amazing. It was well celebrated. Mm-hmm. And they're still putting flowers and stuff outside his record shop, roller coaster. So his spirit will definitely live on. So I just wanted to acknowledge him. 48, cancer, way too young. But he's as I say, he's one of the good ones gone. Another one of the good ones gone today. So
terrible.
That's Willie,
sorry about that, Johnny.
Big loss to Kilkenny. Big loss.
Sorry. Vanessa, anything? Any other business?
John? Sorry.
Sorry, Olga.
I was just going to say we were going to draw attention to it, and we forgot. But it was the least read story on the site this week, I think.
Roger had a big scoop. Nobody cared.
Well, I don't know. Was it a big scoop? But
that Liam will be a witness at the Disclosure Tribunal in the new year.
In January.
Yeah. That was Bodger.
Well, we don't know exactly when, but yeah, it looks like it might be the next module. But yeah, just thought it was interesting. Maybe just
to Bodger, he had a scoop nobody cared about. Not even the participants.
We did. No, stop it.
I know we're joking.
Not even Leo cared. I mean, he was the subject of the story. So, anyway.
So it'll be interesting to know what
waiting for We're waiting for the SCU. The SCU will have us all informed in time, Badger.
Okay. So I'm sick of complimenting you. You can't take it. You get embarrassed.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like that, Johnny.
Johnny Keenan, thank you so much tonight.
Sorry for this. Send your Christmas card.
Neil Curran.
Text me your address.
In Dublin with his projector. Olga Cronin from The Sheet. Vanessa Foran with her much more ample projector behind
It's all about the girth. She's got a girthier projector.
And sorry again about the audio problems. We're going to change to a new platform next week, so it's going to look all more professional and whatever. So we'll hopefully see you then, or if we don't, see you on the site tomorrow. Thank you very much.
John, give us a bar of Raglan Road there.
Do you know the way that she was so beautiful, and this woman that he saw? There was a picture in the paper the other week, and I think Patrick Kavanagh must have had a few jars of balls of malt that day when he.
Actually, all did. Sure, look, I'm all gone. Did he just all that learning about Yeats in school, and then he was. I tell you, not that I was around back then, but the Teachers Club in Dublin, I don't know if any of you have been Parnell Square.
Yeah.
If you ever have a chance,
hang out.
it is indeed. But if you go into the bar that they have there, there's a huge, what looks like a huge painting of Maud Gonne on the wall. Well, actually, it's in the small print, Maud Gonne, but it's actually a negative from a photograph that was taken of her back in the day, and that's how big the negative was. So she would have to stand still for ages. But it really gives you an insight into what Yeats had the horn for, and you know, the fashion and the sexiness of the day. So yeah, sorry, irrelevant, but I just thought I'd put that out there.
Well,
Wonderful use of language there. Yeah. Turn of phrase.
I'm just trying to get down with the kids, the cool kids going.
Anyway, Raglan Road, fantastic tune.
Johnny's going to sing us out with Raglan Road. Aidan Dunphy did one of the best interpretations of that I've ever heard, but drink was taken on everybody's part. Thank you so much. I think
John is going to sing around the vein to say us out. You know, good old-fashioned.
I will.
Night end of this evening.
Oh, I thought it was ironic, speaking of canals, that the Waterways Ireland are trying to evict homeless people who set up tents beside the canal.
Well, maybe, you know, Raglan Road, a lovely suburb in D4, isn't it? Maybe that could be the place where they could hang out.
Yeah, well, anyway,
and maybe have an art collective.
Thanks again.
It's not where Dennis lives. Isn't Dennis O'Brien on Raglan Road?
He is.
Okay, wow, fantastic. We can have. So we sing Raglan Road for Patrick Kavanagh and all the homeless people tonight.
Off you go.
We will.
I'm going on to mute now.
Okay.
I'll only do one verse.
Oh, good. Is that right, Johnny? Thank you.
Okay.